the crisis has definitely elevated the stature of HR, and it's certainly made HR into a much more indispensable part of the C-suite. And I think that that's hopefully that's not just kind of a flash in the pan. That's not just a passing fad.
Hi and welcome to another episode of the peopleHum interview series. I'm your host Anushka Rajesh from the peopleHum team. Before we begin, just a quick introduction of peopleHum. peopleHum is an end-to-end one-view integrated human capital management automation platform, the winner of the 2019 Global Cody Award for HCM that is specifically built for crafted employee experiences and the future of work. We run the peopleHum blog and video channel, which receives upwards of 200,000 visitors a year and publish around 2 interviews with well-known names globally every month. And now for our guest, Yuri Kruman is currently the Managing Consultant, Interim Chief Human Resources Officer of HR Talent and Systems. He has dedicated his career to helping mission-driven enterprises locate the why behind their processes by building, growing, and scaling world-class HR organizations and company cultures, thus empowering talent to do their very best in the here and now. Engaging with award-winning corporations and Inc. 5000 startups to transform how they do business by unlocking and unleashing their greatest asset, that is, the people, Yuri believes in creating a virtuous cycle of engaged employees and increasing profitability. He has also recently penned down his experiences in his book, What Millennials Really Want from Work and Life. We're so thrilled and honored to have someone of his stature today on our interview series. Welcome, Yuri. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure to speak with you.
The pleasure is ours. So, Yuri, coming to the first question, you've mentioned that talent strategy is really essential and how some CEOs often do not, succeed as much as they'd like to because of the wrong approach. So, can you just elaborate a little more for that, for our viewers on that?
Sure. So just for some background, generally, if you look around at, forget best founders, most founders, 98% of founders, they have never worked in HR. And they've usually thought of HR, well, it's, those guys, they do their stuff and it's a cost center and it's a black hole for money. I don't want to bother with them. Just let them do their, legal and compliance and all that stuff. And the problem is when your company grows quickly, you raise around, you get some PR going, everything goes great, and then the talent pipeline starts drying out, and you can't just go on steam without any sort of mission, vision, values, etc. So you get some stuff above the door, and you get an office dog, but it doesn't make your HR problems go away, right? So the issue is that people that are very good at business often they don't either know much about HR, they've never built HR. Their approach to HR is, well, if I have to, then I'll maybe I'll hire someone, but the expectations are all the way up and the budget is all the way down, and that's called setting that person up to fail. That's why usually the first strategic HR hire is a massive flop because people they can't really make expectations meet reality, and that's a huge problem. So my approach to this is to come in as a consultant, someone who's been both in-house as a chief of HR, and also someone, frankly, who's worked in a lot of other places within a company, so maybe finance operations, product management, biz dev, sales. I've built my own companies. I've helped others build their companies, through all sorts of different channels. I've worked with companies that are in the Fortune 500, Inc. 5000, just infant startups and all the way through. So the perspective that I bring is, I would say, in some ways very different from the usual. And what I do is I work directly with the CEO and I make them understand not just the value of HR and not just that it's, frankly, it's a profit driver if you look at it the right way, but also by pressing the button of, wait a minute, you're losing a lot of money on, let's say, your benefits, your payroll, but yeah, your people are leaving too. That's probably the biggest drain. So that's the perspective to which I come to HR, and I have to educate those same founders on why HR is not just important, but also why it creates profits and why you have to do things the right way. Because the unfortunate truth about HR is it's last on and first off. So here we are.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. And that was a really detailed and enlightening explanation, Yuri. Thank you for that. And congratulations on the success of your book.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, coming to the second question, how would you say that a company's employees are their biggest asset? I mean, could you elaborate a little with your anecdotes and experiences?
Sure. Well, again, I don't want to take the usual route of, rah, 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 we have a plaque above the door. Employees are our greatest asset. They are, but that's also according to numbers. The simplest way to look at it is like this. Who is doing your hardest work? Who's doing all your work? It's the people that you hire to do that work. And if you don't empower those people, if you don't trust them to, not just manage your projects and do the tasks and check the boxes, you know, what are you thinking, right? The work isn't going to get done by itself. It's not going to get done well if you're micromanaging or if you're always hovering over them. No, what are you doing there, right? So the problem is that, again, most founders, especially first-time founders, especially people that are, they may not be the most emotionally intelligent, but maybe they're brilliant coders or brilliant salesmen or whatever. You lose a sense of how to press the right buttons, because again, people can voluntarily join, they can also voluntarily leave, and especially best talent, they can go like that. And what happens just in pure numbers when you look at when best talent leaves? So you have somebody, let's say it's a top executive, right? Somebody who's your director of business development. So that person got really annoyed and pissed off with your leadership style because you're always too top down as a founder. He said, you know what? No thanks. I'm out of here. So what just happened with your business development? Number one, that's going to suffer because that person takes his or her network with her. That person is going to take about 2 to 3 times the salary that you're paying them in order to replace, plus the time to ramp up whoever the new person is, plus the time to onboard them, get them to meet everyone, to get them to understand your product, help them to build a team. Next thing you know, you're 18 months in and you're still just getting started with a new person. So again, with recruiter costs, with the cost of maybe a higher salary, the cost to your reputation, frankly, right? Because you're also discounting how people look at you once you don't manage well. So again, fast growth, that's, the kinds of companies I work with, they tend to grow very quickly, and fast growth masks many, many problems, but it sure as hell can't mask them forever. In fact, sooner or later, the original idea of, options or, mission, vision, values, right? That stuff wears off because the people working there are doing this for, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, and they're not getting paid enough, that's for sure. And those options are starting to look a lot less attractive once you've got a crappy micromanager boss. And so that's why in the end, the numbers are pretty clear. If you have higher engagement, if you have people that are genuinely aligned with what they're doing, meaning they're in the right role, staffed on the right project, they're working with people that they respect, that respect them, you have much better results. And we didn't even mention, diversity and inclusion and all that stuff. That also has a pretty solid set of studies and statistics behind it showing that that's excellent for profitability. So again, if you're a fast growth founder, you are a chicken without a head. You're running in every which direction. You're trying to just cover your bases, make everyone happy, or at least happy enough so they don't, take their funding and their board seat somewhere else. But you generally start paying attention to people and HR once you have a lot of pressure from your team leads, from your investors, from your board. And at some point you say, okay, all right, I relent. So again, there's a lot of education that goes into that process of making a founder aware of their blind spot around people.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. And I really like the fact how you said we need to focus and pay attention on the micro aspects like our employees within the organization so that there can be macro level changes. So you're saying change should be more on a bottom up approach than a top down approach, right?
You need both. The truth is that you can't have a grassroots revolt because come on, who holds the purse strings? And you also can have a top down sort of regulation of everything and saying, oh, now you're free to innovate. That also doesn't work, right? Because humans are humans. Humans are averse to change. And it takes a certain process, a certain series of dance steps that, as a coach, that's the core part of what I do. You can change systems all day long, and that's great, and you can show that cutting costs, but the real change comes from one-on-one conversations where you say, look, okay, I'm going to help you figure out your career pathway in the company, or I'm going to help you to do your personal and professional development plan, right? And we're going to connect that to your performance. And also, yeah, we actually do care what you think about the office paint. Maybe you think that color of baby surprise is really horrible. So what should we read it? This is a real anecdote. I just went through this with a client a few months ago. So there's a lot to be said for listening and for if you really want to take a step back, what is the job of a leader? Whoever that leader is, the CEO or anybody else, right? The job of a leader is to clear the road for his or her employees so they can do their life's best work with alignment, with the best tools, but most importantly, with free to say, I can make decisions from an adult. Tell me if we're doing well. Also, tell me if we're not doing well. And with that kind of clarity, magic happens.
Absolutely. So that's really some fresh perspective you gave us there, Yuri. Coming to the next, a third question. When I looked up on you on LinkedIn, I got to know about the SDMI framework that you came up with. So can you elaborate a little and enlighten our audience on that?
Sure. So, as you mentioned, there has to be with any consultant's work, there has to be some sort of idea for how this presents. So if you give me a second here, I want to give you a really good solid understanding of what this is. So essentially four elements to this: the strategy, there's design, there's motivation, and implementation. If you look at classical consulting frameworks, you come in, you do a gap analysis, you do a SWOT analysis, you analyze everything to death, and then you suggest some tools. Oh, throw this on your canvas, or this will help you save money. Okay, great. And maybe you step aside and let the people implementing the systems do their work. Maybe if you're like me, you actually have to do the footwork yourself. But the point is, it's very easy to say, oh, I did this for another client, and this is what worked, so of course this will work for you. No, it doesn't work like that. Right? Oh, implement Slack. Oh, implement JustWorks. Wonderful. And people come and say, okay, but what's in this for me, right? And it doesn't come out in the most open way. Everyone's like, oh yeah, that sounds great, sure. But they don't understand, how is this going to help me to get promoted? How is this going to help me get paid more? Is this going to help me in my personal and professional development? What gives? Okay, you gotta throw me a bone here. So again, I came in, I work with the founders to do the gap analysis and do the SWOT analysis and understand, what do we need to fix? If we have 10 things to fix, it's a lot easier to fix 3. So then we go and we say, okay, well, we know where let's say your workflows are, or your decision flows, or let's say that your benefits and your payroll are terrible, right? People are not incentivized because your benefits are not up to industry standards. So we can fix that. We can, work with JustWorks or some other vendor, fine. But the most important part is, again, sitting down with each employee and just talking it out with them. Hey, what's working? What's not? Are you okay? You behind the Zoom screen there, pretending that everything is rainbows and unicorns. No, like everyone's not okay. Everyone is, kind of messed up by this whole crisis. We're used to dealing with people one-on-one. There's a certain, I would say, density of information that passes from one person to another, and when you're face to face, you can't improvise that over many months, so you lose something. And bottom line is, you need to have that conversation to really understand, where is this person holding, where are they going, how do I help them get to that next place? So that's the motivation part. That's, you talk about digital transformation, get on Slack, and again, all those systems. 80% of those things don't work. And the reason is because no one takes the time to talk to the employees and tell them, hey, this is going to help you in your career to get promoted, get paid more, so on and so forth. Right? And then, of course, you have to implement the systems. You have to make sure that, you're not just blah, 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 blah. And, oh, that's nice. I painted you a nice picture and I designed you a lovely chart, a flow chart. But you need to actually show people how the use of those systems is going to help them. And again, to make sure that the systems underwrite continued growth and continued personal and professional development for people so that they don't feel like they're stagnating. They feel like they're progressing, they're learning something new. Again, they're getting rewarded for it, not just with, money. Oh, here's a gift card. If they really want a gift card, great. But you have to incentivize people in the right way. And if you look at the work of Dan Pink, for example, right, you see clearly that money has a very quick spike of an effect, but then it drops very quickly. So you have to find something else, right? And usually that means development of some sort, personal, professional, something. And that's what this framework is like. So you have strategy, design, motivation, and implementation. And the four things I found when you glue them together, that's what really sticks.
Lovely, lovely. I thoroughly, completely agree with the fact how you mentioned we need to develop a connect and we need to connect with our employees and empower them. That's absolutely the need of the hour, no doubt on that. And thank you so much for because this framework is such a holistic one, and I think it really speaks for itself. So yeah, that's just great. Thanks, Yuri.
Pleasure.
So, coming to the fourth question, now with the pandemic and the so called new normal, in your opinion, what are the new challenges that HR and HR professionals are really facing in the world of today?
Well, if you look at just a few months ago, again, this kind of mindset that leadership would have about HR is, well, okay, they kind of like sort of make the trains run on time. They make sure that we're not exposed to lawsuits. Sounds nice. Maybe ask them a question about benefits. Like, what do they actually do there? I have no idea. Right. So the perception of HR was, well, um, just like keep doing your thing and don't screw up. Nobody was looking to HR to lead any kind of initiatives around digital transformation because you bring consultants for that, right? And nobody's looking to HR before all of this to kind of really support everyone. It's like just don't screw up. Just pretend to dance, but you don't have to do much. As a result of this whole situation, HR was thrust right into the front of leadership, and at this point, it means yeah, you've got to implement systems because if you don't have Slack, if you don't have Zoom, if you don't have all of these other tools, how are you even going to check in on people? Never mind figure out their mood, their mental health needs. How do you get them extra childcare because they have two kids at home, and how do you help them take care of their parents, their pets? I don't know what, right? So it's a much bigger challenge to which HR has had to step up. And again, you have many companies where it's been a very pleasant surprise. But again, people kind of like came out of the woodwork and they really blossomed. And like, yeah, I was here the whole time. I could have done this before, but now you see the point. Now there's a budget. Now, the expectations are more aligned with what we're actually doing, where we need to go. More importantly, so I would say that the crisis has definitely elevated the stature of HR, and it's certainly made HR into a much more indispensable part of the C-suite. And I think that's hopefully that's not just kind of a flash in the pan. That's not just a passing fad. I also have seen a trend of talent coming in from other functions and other industries. So there's really in the last maybe 3-4 years has been a massive boom of much more holistic thinking. People are bringing things like design thinking, systems thinking to HR. They're starting to understand the power of empowering people again because somebody finally did studies showing, hey, if you don't empower your people, you don't kind of autonomy and agency to do what they see fit. Well, they're going to leave. So there's more of an awareness. It's more of I would say also more societal pressure, right? Partly due to, let's say, the kind of diversity and inclusion movement, Black Lives Matter, and you know that awareness is no longer just superficial. It's not just like, well, let's check boxes. Because what happened is, a lot of companies sent out this internal communication. Yeah, we're with you. Yeah, BLM and all that stuff. But it's dry and it falls on deaf ears. It's like, you guys are just obviously trying to check boxes. So there's an awareness that you have to really be with your people in a very real sense, down in the proverbial trenches. You can't speak down to them. You can't just sort of check boxes and pretend that everything is going to go back to normal. There is no new normal. That's not a real paradigm. We know that a lot of things are completely broken, whether that's with recruiting, diversity and inclusion, with lack of budgets, lack of awareness, lack of coaching as well. So we know that whatever was in the past was really actually messed up. And thankfully, HR now is in a position and with a budget and prerogative to really do things in the right way, at least in many companies and industries. We'll see how that plays out. Nobody knows.
Right, absolutely. And so, in a way, the pandemic has been a boon for the HR industry, but it's also a little ironic how we need a pandemic so that we actually realize that HR as a separate um, department or like a set of professionals are indispensable to the organization. Absolutely. So, what is your opinion on the working style of millennials? According to you, how important are millennials demographically for a company's culture?
Well, I don't mean to sound flip, but we kind of it's a long established fact. Millennials are already the main demographic in the workforce. So it's they're not we're not even very sexy as a subject anymore. It's like, oh, those guys we have to deal with them. So I think it's kind of like in a way we're past the curve of, millennials are a problem. We went through this. I read about this in the book quite a bit. There's been this massive commentariat speaking about millennials being entitled and flaky and all this kind of stuff. When you look at the numbers, it's all BS, right? It's like, older people talking down to younger people. It's been exactly the same thing. If you look back at what boomers did to Gen Xers, for example, or if you look at that generational shift, it's always the same thing. The same averages of, oh, those young people can't pay their dues and stay around and what. You get the same thing, guys. Gen X did that, boomers did that. Oh, you're all flower children. So now it's some kind of like, version of that, but for millennials. And but Gen Zs, they're very different because now they're so freaked out by everything since 9/11 that they're very conservative and saving a lot more. So millennials are kind of like, yawn. But what do millennials want? A lot of the same things. We want to have a family. We want to have a great career. We want to have that proverbial house in the suburbs with a 2-car garage. Maybe now we don't want 2.3 kids. We want 1.5. I don't know what the average is. But the point is, people want more or less the same things. They want stability. They want growth. So kind of like both. You got to have the stability and then you have growth. And the difference with millennials, and actually I think that something is different about Gen Z. It's just a different animal in some ways. Millennials, because we lived through the Great Recession, because we live now through this COVID crisis, we absolutely do not believe in the premise of paying our dues, because we know that largely that's a construct designed by older generations to keep us down. And we also know that there are many alternate business models to how we can do things. There are many other ways of making money. A lot of them are fool's gold, but if you figure it out, if you sort of like, now there's a freelancing revolution. So let's say you go work for a few years as a consultant, you can go, freelance on your own, or if you go and work, I don't know, in iBanking, you can go into fintech. There are many other options. Again, who knows how things will turn out next year or 5 years from there because automation and all that stuff. But the bottom line is millennials are kind of over all that stuff about paying dues and just like do your thing and great things will happen. Nobody believes that. Everyone's pretty depressed and miserable and like I have no idea what the hell's going to be next year. So there's your HR angle.
So true. And just to kind of wrap this interview up, Yuri, do you have any last sound bites you'd like to leave our audience with?
Sure. I'm actually finishing up a book which is called the next book. It's called Be Your Own Commander in Chief. The premise there is how do you empower yourself, whether you're an employee or an executive, to live your best life through conversation, through language and psychology. First is about your body, optimizing what you have. Number two is your mental models, meaning how you view the world, and also your life skills. The third piece is how you relate to other people. And if you take a conversation as a way to deliver value and to derive value for yourself as well, how do you do that? It's kind of like the sexy coaching stuff. And the first two things are how do you make sure that your house, meaning your head and your body are not cluttered and not weighed down, so you're prevented from doing your best work consistently. And then the last piece is talking with God or the universe about why me, why all this, what am I meant to make of all this? And I think that for me, this is a way to express much more holistic philosophy rather than tips and tricks and growth hacks and all that stuff for how to live your best life, how to make sure that you have the right life skills in order to deal with life efficiently, but also to find whom are you meant to serve and how to do it through your professional life. And this book is coming out in mid-January, so look out for it. Be Your Own Commander in Chief.
Sure. I'm really certain our audience are gonna look out for the book and also be wanting to read it. And good luck. And I'm really certain that it'll be a great success.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate this conversation. Thank you for your time.
I appreciate it as well. Thank you, Yuri. It was an honor, and felt wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much for taking out the time to speak to us and peopleHum, and just sharing your really fresh perspectives with us. I really hope we can stay in touch in the future, and you have a healthy and safe time ahead of you.
Absolutely. Please do the same. All the best. Take care.
Thank you. Bye bye.